I was in the garage, tinkering with the old toolbox Sarah always complained about, when I heard the front door shut, not the usual way. This was quick, almost guilty, like someone trying not to be noticed. I wiped the grease from my hands and stepped into the hallway, just in time to see her toss her purse onto the couch, eyes darting toward the staircase. "Hey," I called out. She froze for half a second before forcing a smile. "Hey, I didn't know you were home." "I wasn't supposed to be," I replied. "I'd left earlier that afternoon to run errands and figured I'd kill time before heading back, but something made me return early. I hadn't been able to shake the feeling lately, the nagging suspicion that something in our house, in our marriage, had shifted." Sarah had been acting strange. Not in an obvious, dramatic way, but in subtle, calculated moves, the type of changes you only notice when you've spent years memorizing every detail of someone. The way she kept her phone on silent now, the way she started locking the bathroom door when she never used to, the sudden interest in going on evening walks alone, which wouldn't have been weird, except she never came back sweaty or winded, just different. I stepped closer. She smelled like perfume, not hers, something sharper, unfamiliar. "Where were you?" I asked casually. She blinked. "What? Where were you?" I repeated. She scoffed, too forcefully. "Are we doing this now?" "Doing what, the whole 'where have you been, Sarah' thing? Like I need to check in every time I leave the house?" Her reaction was off, too defensive. I hadn't even accused her of anything, but she was already treating me like I had. I nodded toward her dress, a simple black one, nice, but not the type she usually wore to run errands. "You dressed up?" Sarah let out an exaggerated sigh and rolled her eyes. "I went to get coffee." "Okay, sue me for wanting to look nice for once. Coffee and heels?" I glanced down, as if realizing she was still wearing them. A flicker of something passed over her face before she recovered. "I met up with Olivia. She had some drama going on. I was just being a good friend." "Call her that?" I said, and that did it. The mask slipped for a fraction of a second, but I caught it. "What?" she asked, her voice a little too light. "Call Olivia. Put her on speaker." Her jaw tightened. "You're being ridiculous." "Am I?" Sarah sucked in a breath, then laughed, shaking her head. "Jesus, I can't believe this. You really think I'm lying? I went for coffee, that's it. What's wrong with you?" "Call her," I repeated. She stared at me, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw something new in her eyes. Not guilt, not frustration, something closer to contempt. Then, just like that, the switch flipped. Her expression softened, and she stepped closer, placing a hand on my chest. "I don't want to fight," she murmured. "I'm tired. Can we not do this?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized something chilling. She wasn't scared of getting caught. She was annoyed that I was catching on. I stood there, her hands still resting on my chest, her eyes searching mine for any sign of weakness. The old me, the man who still believed every word that came out of her mouth, might have caved right then. But something in me had snapped. I grabbed my phone and, without breaking eye contact, started typing Olivia's number. Sarah's fingers tightened on my shirt. "Are you serious?" I hit call. She exhaled sharply through her nose, her jaw clenching, but she didn't stop me. I turned the speaker on just as the ringing started. One ring. Two. Then Olivia's voice. "Hey, what's up?" I glanced at Sarah, who had gone completely still. "Hey, Liv, just quick, Sarah said you guys got coffee earlier?" There was a pause, a fraction of a second too long, then Olivia laughed, but it was the nervous, uncertain kind. Yeah? Yeah, we did." I closed my eyes for a beat. There it was. "Where'd you go?" I asked. Another pause. Sarah finally spoke, her voice tight. "Jesus, are you serious right now?" Olivia hesitated, then said, "That little place near the bookstore, the one with the weird muffins." Sarah turned and walked toward the kitchen, pulling a glass from the cabinet, like this wasn't happening, like I wasn't standing there, exposing her in real time. You got a muffin? I asked, staring after Sarah. Oh, Olivia's voice wavered. Sarah did. Yeah, I just got coffee. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Right. Okay. That's all I needed. See you around, Liv. I ended the call before she could dig herself in deeper. Sarah turned around, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed. Feel better? She asked flatly. You weren't with Olivia, I said. She tilted her head, no denial, no excuses, just that. Who was it? I asked. Sarah smirked, actually smirked, and took a sip of her water before answering. You don't get to interrogate me like I'm some kind of criminal. I'm your husband, I said, repeating myself. You want the truth? Fine. Who was it? She rolled her eyes, setting the glass down with a sharp clink. It's not what you think. We were just talking. You dressed up to just talk with someone you can't even name? I said. Sarah let out a short laugh, pushing past me toward the living room. You're being paranoid. You always do this. The second I have a life outside of you, suddenly I'm cheating. Right? I turned, watching her like she was a stranger in my home. You needed space, I said, my voice low. And when I gave it to you, you lost it. You don't like distance, Sarah. You like secrets. Her lips pressed together, her nostrils flaring slightly. And then, just like that, she switched tactics again. She sighed dramatically, shaking her head like I was the one overreacting. I'm going to bed, she muttered, walking toward the stairs. I let her go. I didn't follow. I just stood there, my mind racing, because now I knew she was lying, and I was done pretending not to see it. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint sound of Sarah's breathing on the other side of the bed, deep, steady, like she had no trouble at all drifting off while I was stuck in a loop of every red flag I had ignored. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She came downstairs in her robe, yawning, making coffee like it was just another day. No tension in her shoulders, no guilt, like last night was just an inconvenience, something to be brushed off and forgotten. I wasn't letting it go. Who is he? I asked, watching her from the kitchen table. She didn't flinch, didn't even look at me, just poured her coffee and stirred it lazily. You're still on this? Yeah, I am. She took a sip, finally glancing up. I already told you, it's a friend. You don't have friends. That got to her. A flicker of irritation passed over her face. I mean real friends, I clarified. Not work acquaintances you barely talk to. Not people you vent to about how exhausting your life is. You don't have a single person in your life who'd cover for you like Olivia did. So who is he? She set her mug down a little too hard. You know I don't have to explain myself to you. You do, when you're sneaking around like a goddamn teenager. That's when I saw it, the shift in her expression, the moment she realized she wasn't going to talk her way out of this. That I wasn't backing down. And so, she did what she always did when she lost control, she flipped the script. You really want to know why I needed space? She said, her voice low, dangerous. Because of this. Because of the way you suffocate me, the way you obsess over every little thing I do, like I owe you every second of my life. That's why I needed distance. I almost laughed. You asked for space and got mad when I gave it to you. She scoffed. Oh, please. You didn't give me space. You punished me. You started ignoring me, treating me like a stranger in my own home. Because you are a stranger, I said. The woman I married. I wouldn't lie to my face and then act like I'm the problem when I catch her. She folded her arms, glaring. What exactly do you think I did? I leaned forward. Say it. Her jaw tensed. Go on, I pressed. Say what you did since I'm so paranoid, since I'm so crazy. Say it out loud. Her nails dug into her arms. I had coffee with a friend, that's it. I held her stare and let the silence stretch. She looked away first. That was all I needed. I stood, pushing the chair back with a scrape. I'm done talking in circles. If you won't be honest, I'll find the truth myself. I walked out before she could respond, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. I had a plan now, and I wasn't going to stop until I had proof. I didn't bother telling her where I was going. I just grabbed my keys, walked out, and let the door slam behind me. If she was going to treat me like some paranoid idiot, then fine, I'd get the truth myself. First stop, Olivia. I knew where she worked, a small boutique downtown. The kind of place Sarah used to drag me into on weekends, pretending to ask for my opinion while she ignored everything I said. I parked outside, took a deep breath, and walked in. Olivia was behind the counter, scrolling on her phone. When she looked up and saw me, her face paled for half a second before she forced a smile. Hey, what's up? I leaned against the counter. Cut the crap, Liv. Her smile wavered. Excuse me? You lied to me last night. She let out a nervous laugh. I don't know what you're talking about. I tilted my head, watching her closely. You hesitated before answering. You didn't know where you were supposedly meeting Sarah until you made something up. And when I ended the call, you didn't even try to fix your lie. Olivia opened her mouth, then closed it. I waited. Finally, she sighed, looking around as if making sure no one else was listening. Look, she put me on the spot, okay? I didn't know what to say. So tell me now, I urged. She rubbed her forehead and exhaled sharply. I don't know where she was. She texted me earlier in the day and told me to cover for her in case you asked. That's all I know. A bitter taste filled my mouth. Did she tell you why? Olivia hesitated. I leaned in. Liv? She swallowed. She said you guys were going through something, and she needed space. That you'd overreact if you knew she was meeting someone else. I let those words sink in. Meeting someone else. Not a girlfriend, not a coworker, someone else. I nodded slowly, stepping back. That's all I needed to know. She reached out as I turned to leave. Wait, please don't do anything crazy. I paused at the door, looking over my shoulder. Crazy would be trusting her again. I left without another word. Next stop, her car. Sarah wasn't reckless. She was calculated, careful. But nobody's perfect, and if she had been meeting someone, there had to be a clue somewhere. I drove back home, my mind racing. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was still there. Good. I had time. I walked inside, pretending nothing had happened. Sarah was on the couch, flipping through her phone like she wasn't a lying, cheating coward. She barely glanced at me. Where'd you go? She asked. Just needed some air, I said casually. She nodded, uninterested. Okay. She didn't ask for details because she didn't care. Perfect. I headed upstairs, waited a few minutes, then slipped back down, out the front door, and straight to her car. Unlocked. Jesus, she really was getting sloppy. I slid into the driver's seat and started checking the glove compartment, center console, and door pockets. Nothing. Then I saw it, a crumpled receipt shoved between the seat and the center console. I pulled it out, smoothed it open. A bar from last night, the time, exactly when she was supposedly having coffee with Olivia. And the kicker, 2 drinks. I stared at it, my heartbeat slow and steady. Gotcha. I sat there in her car, staring at the receipt. 2 drinks. A bar. Last night. So, she hadn't just lied, she'd planned it. She made Olivia cover for her before she even left the house. She knew exactly what she was doing. And that meant whoever she was meeting wasn't just some random friend. You don't plan lies for casual conversations. I took a picture of the receipt, folded it neatly, and slid it back where I found it. If she noticed it was gone, she'd know I was onto her. I needed her to keep underestimating me. When I stepped back inside, Sarah was still on the couch, scrolling her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. She looked up briefly. You okay? I almost laughed at the audacity of this woman. Yeah, I said, forcing a small smile. Just tired. She nodded, already tuning me out. I went upstairs, locked myself in our bathroom, and pulled out my phone. It was time to stop guessing. Time to stop giving her the benefit of the doubt. I opened our phone bill account. Sarah was careful, but careful people have habits. And if she'd been talking to someone, there'd be a pattern. Took me 5 minutes to find it. One number. Over and over, at weird times. Late at night. Early mornings before I woke up. Calls that lasted 5 minutes. Calls that lasted an hour. I stared at it, gripping my phone so hard my fingers ached. I copied the number, pasted it into a search engine. Nothing. No name, no business attached. Just a number. I debated calling it, but if she had given them a heads up, they wouldn't answer. Instead, I texted Olivia. Be honest, is it someone from work? Olivia. I don't know. Me. Then guess. Olivia. If I had to guess, it's someone she met at the gym. The gym. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. Of course. The new routine. The sudden obsession with working out, even though she never cared before. The extra long workouts. The showers the second she got home. She wasn't getting in shape. She was getting away from me. I opened my messages with Sarah and scrolled. There it was, a text from 2 days ago. Might stay a little longer after my workout today, just clearing my head. Clearing her head. Right. I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed out a text to her. Want to do something tonight? Just us? Downstairs, I heard her phone buzz. A few seconds later, she replied. Sarah can't. Might stay late at the gym. I smiled because now I knew exactly where to go. I waited until she left, watching from the upstairs window as she backed out of the driveway, her gym bag in the passenger seat like a prop in a bad play. She didn't even glance toward the house. Just drove off like she didn't have a single worry in the world. That would change soon. I grabbed my keys and left. 5 minutes later, the gym was across town, a sleek, modern place she had insisted on joining a few months back. I had barely thought twice about it then. If anything, I was happy she had found something she enjoyed. Now I knew better. I parked across the street, far enough that she wouldn't notice my car if she was looking, but she wasn't. She was inside already. I spotted her through the massive front windows, standing near the treadmills, scrolling her phone, waiting. I settled in and watched. 15 minutes passed. Then 20 people filtered in and out of the gym, but Sarah barely moved. She kept checking her phone, adjusting her ponytail, glancing toward the entrance. Then finally he showed up, tall, fit, with a cocky stride. He didn't check in at the front desk, didn't stop at the lockers. He walked straight to her, like they had a routine, like this was just another night. She smiled, a real, genuine smile, not the tight, polite one she gave me lately. She reached out, touched his arm, laughing at something he said. Then they moved toward the back of the gym, near the weight racks, talking low, heads tilted close. Something burned in my chest, hot and ugly. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures through the window. Not the best quality, but clear enough. Sarah, mystery guy, close, comfortable. Then I got out of the car. I walked across the street, pushed open the doors, and stepped inside. The air smelled like sweat and cheap deodorant. Music pulsed from overhead speakers, masking the sound of my footsteps. I kept my eyes locked on them as I weaved through the machines, past people lifting weights and pretending not to notice their own reflections in the mirrors. Sarah had her back to me, leaning against the squat rack, still talking to him. Her body language was completely different, loose, playful, like she wasn't the same woman who had been rolling her eyes at me for daring to ask where she'd been. I stopped a few feet away. Hey, babe. Sarah froze. She turned slowly, like she already knew what she was going to see, but was hoping she was wrong. Her face paled when she spotted me. Mystery guy looked between us, eyebrows raising slightly. He didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed, like I was interrupting something. "Who's this?" he asked, nodding toward me. I smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Her husband." Silence. Sarah swallowed, her fingers tightening around the water bottle she was holding. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Thought I'd finally check out the place. Maybe get a workout in." I glanced at the guy. "Or maybe I should ask you what you're doing here, since you're apparently the reason my wife needs so much space." His lips twitched, like this was funny. Sarah stepped forward, her voice low. "Let's not do this here." "Why not?" I said. "You don't seem to mind doing this here." Mystery Guy finally spoke. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble." I turned to him, still smiling. "Then you probably shouldn't be messing around with married women." His expression shifted slightly, just for a second, just enough to confirm everything I already knew. Sarah exhaled sharply. "God, you're so dramatic." "Nothing is happening here." I pulled out my phone and held up the screen, the pictures. Her, him, close, familiar. She sucked in a breath. Mystery Guy sighed, rubbing his jaw. "Jesus, I told you this was a bad idea." I stiffened. "Told her what?" Sarah snapped her head toward him, eyes widening slightly. "Shut up." "Too late," I said. I had my answer. I nodded slowly, pocketing my phone. "Got it." Then I turned and walked out, leaving Sarah standing there with the mess she had made. Now she could deal with the wreckage alone. I drove home in complete silence. No music, no thoughts really, just that empty, ringing feeling in my head like my mind had shut down. Everything except the basic function of keeping the car on the road. Sarah didn't try to follow me. She didn't even text. That told me everything I needed to know. When I pulled into the driveway, I didn't sit there and process. I didn't hesitate. I went straight inside, straight up the stairs, and straight into our bedroom. It was time to pack. I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and started throwing clothes in, enough to last a week, maybe two. I wasn't thinking about logistics yet. I just knew I wasn't going to be here when she got home. I wasn't going to sit across from her at the dinner table and pretend there was anything left to talk about. Then I saw it, her phone charger, plugged in by her side of the bed. Sarah never left the house without it. She was obsessive about keeping her phone charged. And yet, in her rush to leave with him, she had forgotten it. I stared at it for a long second. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed her phone from the nightstand and unlocked it. God, she really had gotten sloppy. I opened her messages, scrolled past my name, barely any text there, of course. Then I found his number. No name saved, just a random string of digits, but I knew exactly who it was. I clicked, and there it was, weeks of messages. Sarah, he's starting to ask questions. Him, told you he would. You should have handled it sooner. Sarah, I know, I just didn't think he'd actually notice. Him, he's an idiot, but even idiots catch on eventually. I gripped the phone so tight, my knuckles ached. Sarah, I wish I'd met you first. Him, you kind of did. You just made the wrong choice. I scrolled further. Sarah, tonight? Him, yeah, same place. Sarah, can't wait. The message was from an hour before I walked into that gym. That was it. That was all I needed. I took a screenshot, sent it to my phone, then, just for good measure, I sent it to her mom. Then I placed her phone neatly back on the nightstand. I finished packing, grabbed my keys. I was done here. And when Sarah came home, she'd finally realized just how much she had lost. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't throw things, or scream, or leave some dramatic note for Sarah to find. I wanted the silence to hit her like a truck. I wanted her to walk in expecting a fight, and instead, find a home that already felt abandoned. I drove without a destination, just put miles between me and that house, that woman, the lie I had been living. My phone buzzed. Probably Olivia, maybe even Sarah, finally realizing I had pulled the rug out from under her. I didn't check, not yet. An hour later, I pulled into a cheap motel parking lot and just sat there, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My own face looked foreign to me, like I wasn't even sure who I was without her. Then I checked my phone. One new message from Sarah. I opened it. "Sarah, what the hell is this?" I stared at it. That was it. No apology, no panic, just that. She had seen the screenshot, and instead of falling apart, she was angry. I didn't reply. A minute later, another text. "Sarah, are you seriously running away like a child?" I exhaled slowly. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even trying to explain. She was pissed because I had taken control away from her. I typed back. "Me, you're a liar, Sarah." "Sarah, oh, don't be dramatic. You act like I killed someone." "Me, you killed this marriage." 3 dots appeared like she was typing. Then they disappeared. Then they came back. "Sarah, you were never enough for me. That's the truth you don't want to hear." I felt nothing, just a numb, hollow understanding that this wasn't the woman I thought I knew. Had married? Maybe she never was. Then another text. "Sarah, but if you come back, we can talk." And that was when I laughed, actually laughed. She had already lost. She just didn't know it yet. I put my phone on silent, tossed it onto the passenger seat, and got out of the car. I was done being played. Tomorrow, I was calling the lawyer. That night, I woke up to 17 missed calls. Sarah had finally realized I wasn't coming back. I scrolled through the notifications, half expecting some last-minute tearful apology. But no, just more of the same. "Sarah, you're making this worse than it needs to be. Sarah, we should at least have a conversation like adults. Sarah, ignoring me isn't solving anything." Then, buried in the middle of the messages, one from her mother. "Her mom, call me when you can." I sat up in bed, rubbing the exhaustion from my face. I hadn't told anyone else yet, just sent the screenshot and disappeared. I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "Sweetheart," she said, breathless, like she had been waiting. "Where are you?" "Somewhere that isn't home." A pause, then a deep sigh. She told me her side. "Did she?" I said, leaning back against the cheap motel headboard. "And what exactly is her side?" Her mom hesitated. "She said she thought she was unhappy, but now she realizes she made a mistake, that she wants to fix things." I closed my eyes. Of course, the second she lost control, she had gone running to the one person who had always cleaned up her messes. "She doesn't want to fix anything," I said. "She just doesn't want to deal with the consequences." "Listen," her mother said gently. "I'm not excusing what she did, but are you sure this is what you want? Throwing away a marriage over one mistake?" "One mistake?" I repeated. She must have heard something in my voice because she sighed again. I've never seen her like this. She's a mess. She knows she's screwed up. She's saying all the right things." "I've heard that before," I muttered. "She always says the right things, but she never means them." Her mother was quiet. "I'm filing," I said. "I just wanted you to hear it from me first." A long pause, then softly. "I understand." And that was the moment I knew her own mother wasn't fighting me on this because deep down, even she knew Sarah wasn't worth saving. I hung up, tossed my phone on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. 2 days later, I served her the divorce papers. I didn't do it myself. I wanted to, God, I wanted to see her face when she realized I wasn't bluffing, but I knew how she operated. She'd turn it into some dramatic emotional performance. Tears, accusations, maybe even a last-ditch attempt at seduction. I wasn't giving her the chance. Instead, I let the process server do it. I was sitting in a coffee shop when I got the text from my lawyer. "She's been served." I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee, waiting. I knew it was coming, and sure enough, 5 minutes later, my phone lit up. Sarah calling. I let it ring. Then came the text. "Sarah, are you serious? Sarah, You're really going through with this? Sarah, we can fix this. Sarah, are you really willing to throw everything away? Then the final one. Sarah, you're making a mistake. I almost laughed. She still thought she had control, that if she just said the right combination of words, I'd come running back like a loyal, lovesick fool. She was wrong. I finished my coffee, watching as people came and went, living their lives. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't even realized I'd lost: relief. It was over, and I was free.